Hello, academic stars around the world. Welcome to Caltex Academy Education here. My name is Julius and thank you for joining us today. On our board, we're looking at a question from South Africa examination, and that is Basic Education Department of Grade 12 and Paper 2 of November 2022. And this question is presented by one of the academic stars from South Africa. So if you want also to have some question worked for you, you can send your request to the WhatsApp number up, and also I'll be able to work for you. And there's only one condition for you to do so. You need to be a member of this great channel. So simply you can do that by subscribing to the channel and send your request. I'll happily work it for you. So with all this said, let us dive in and take a look at that question. Yes, so our question is here. It says, given that root 13 sine x plus 3 equals 0, where x is an element of 90 degrees and 270, meaning our angle is lying between 90 degrees and 270 degrees. So without using a calculator, determine the values of the first question is sine of 360 degrees, and this one carries 2 marks. And the next one is tan x, having 3 marks. And lastly here we have 180 degrees plus x as the angle for cosine, carries 2 marks. In total, we have 7 marks for this question. So when you have this type of question, there's no need for you to panic. What you have to do first is to look at the expression given to you. And here we're restricted not to use a calculator. So what we can do here is to collect what has been given for us and start working on it to make sure that we isolate the given precursor here, that is sine of x. So let's work towards that by providing some space, and we extract out exactly what is given for us here, and that is square root of 13 and multiplied in by sine of our angle x plus 3 equals 0. And from here we can take this to the side, and we're left here with square root of 13 sine of x equals negative 3. We can still isolate this by dividing both sides by root 13. Therefore, we're only left here with sine of x is given by negative 3, and we can divide this by the square root of 13. And when you study this carefully, it is negative. But therefore, we have 2 quadrants in which possibly our x would lie. And from here, we can also draw a cast diagram in order for us to be able to locate this without any challenge. Okay, from here, we first need to give an angle here that is 0 degrees. Here is 90, and we have here 180 degrees. Here is 270 degrees, and back to 360 degrees. You look at sine. From here, sine is positive in the second quadrant and the first quadrant. And of course, here we have just moved this out because it's out of the range, but our main focus is this one and here. But then, from our expression here, we have negative, so sine is negative in the third quadrant. Therefore, we leave this out and we take a look at the next one here. So we have to indicate this angle. So this is our angle x from soccer tour, and we're dealing with sine. Sine is given by opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite would be this, negative 3, and hypotenuse is here, root 13. Now, we need to also have adjacent because we have cos here. So for us to get cos, we need a relationship between adjacent and hypotenuse. So here we can use Pythagoras theorem to get this adjacent. Therefore, r is this distance plus y, and y is this side down here, square. So we can move on and substitute whatever we know. So r is root 13 and is squared, so it will be equivalent to x is what we're looking for. So when we square this first part, we have the root is taken off by this 2, and we're only having 13. So we have our x squared plus 9. Taking 9 to the left-hand side, we have 13 minus 9 equals x squared. So 13 minus 9 is 4, and this is equivalent to x squared. Getting roots on both sides, you can have the value for x either positive or negative 2. Of course, this is after getting a root all these two sides here, either positive or negative. And this side is always negative, so x value here is negative, so we take the value for x to be negative. Therefore, this implies that our x equals negative 2. Now, placing our negative 2 here, we'll have something like that. The next thing is to look at the question and start solving it out. Take a look at the first part here. Once we know we have a question to work on and the question is labeled, please go ahead and also label it the way it is given to you. So this is question number 5, part 1 of 1. What we have here is sine of the angle 360 degrees plus x. Now, in order for us to get this right, this is like we have moved a complete revolution starting from here. Of course, the direction of movement is always in this way, where we start from here, then we continue moving in that form. So 360 meaning we have moved all the complete revolution, and we're moving again because we know that our angle is in the third quadrant. And if that is the case, then we have moved 360 plus another value for x, which is this one here. Now, to make this simple, we just simply remember it by saying if the value theta is greater than 0, we subtract 360 away. I discussed this in one of our previous video. The link is in the description, or you can check up in the card here and also watch it into detail. I explained everything. Now, when theta, or the angle given to us, is less than 0, then we have to add 360 degrees. Now, looking at this one here, we have this 360 degrees is greater than 0, so we have to subtract 360 away from here. Meaning we have here sine of the angle x. Now, the sine of angle x at this quadrant is negative because it's only tan that is positive. So we have here what? Negative. Therefore, this is equivalent to negative times sine of x. And we know sine of x is given here. That is negative 3 all over root 13. Now, when we open up that bracket, our solution will be positive 3 root of 13. So that is the solution for the first part of the question. And let's move on to the second part, and we're looking at tan of x. And this is 5.1.2, saying we are calculating for tan of angle x. From our right angle diagram, we know that for us to get tan, we need to come from shocker to tower, and from tower, tan of any angle x is given by opposite over adjacent. So our opposite for this case is negative 3 over adjacent is negative 2. And also knowing that at this side tan is positive, so we'll go on and reduce this down, and we have 3 over 2. If you wish, you can write it in also decimal, and you have something like 1.5, and that is the solution for tan x. So let's move on to the last one for this question. It says find also cos of 180 plus x, and that is in this quadrant. Remember, one thing I did not indicate here, at this level we have either 90 degrees minus x or 90 plus x, and this is for cofunctions. And here we'll have like 360 degrees plus, okay, here let's say x. Then at this side we have 180 degrees minus x. At this we'll have 180 degrees plus x. And here we have 360 degrees minus x. So when you look at this, that is cos in this quadrant. And cos in this quadrant here is negative because it's only tan that is positive, sine of that angle x, and cos of an angle x here above negative. I think the numbering is 5 is to 1 is to 3. That is cos of 180 plus x. So this is equivalent to negative because it is in the third quadrant. cos of this angle x. We can go ahead and state the cos from SOHCAHTOA, adjacent over hypotenuse. And when we look at our adjacent from the diagram here, we have -2, hypotenuse is root 13. We have our negative outside here, so we have -2 from the diagram and 13. Now we can also open up this bracket and obtain 2 over root 13, and that is the solution for this first part of the question. If you have watched up to this time and you have not subscribed, do well to go ahead and subscribe to the Caltex Academy and become one of the academic stars. And if you have done that, thank you. Let us move on to the next question. Yeah, for this question 5.2.0, it says determine the value of the following expression without using a calculator. Now at this level, the first thing we can do here is just to first draw our cast diagram and indicate where these angles will lie. Putting in mind that if you have an angle less than 0, you have to add 360 into it. So let's see by drawing our diagram here first. Now from here, as I mentioned earlier on, because we have something like 90, this is cofunction and it's here, we can start from here also saying 90 degrees. Then yes, the angle given for us here is in terms of theta, so we can also place here theta, and we move to this side, the same thing, 90 at this time plus theta. From here again, another option is 360 degrees plus theta, and the option for 180 is minus theta. Now we're done with the first and second quadrant. In the third quadrant, we have here 180 plus theta. And lastly here, we have 360 minus theta. Putting in mind that what we have here is 0 degrees, and here is 90 degrees, and here 180. So we have 270 back to 360 degrees at this quadrant. Now looking at this, we have all the triggers as positive. Yes, only sign positive, and positive here, and cos positive in the fourth quadrant. We can start working out the solution by rewriting the equation again here, where we have cos of 90 degrees plus theta. We can divide this by sine of the angle theta minus 180 plus 3 times sine of negative theta. Having written this, we can start now the solution by looking at this angle, and that is in the second quadrant. So since it is cosine, then we'll consider it as negative here. Cos is negative in this quadrant, and term is also negative at this quadrant here. For cofunction, once you're given as cosine, we can write its opposite, and that is sine. So here we have negative sine of the angle theta. Why is it negative? Because of this original expression for cos at second quadrant always negative. So this sign is taking the inherited sign from the cosine here. Now that is all with the numerator. Again, we can divide this by the angle theta minus 180 degrees. We are adding in 360 degrees, and we are done with that part. Let's move to the next term. Here we have 3, and the same thing happens here. This is sine. So this sign is having a negative value, so we're adding 360 degrees to the existing angle here. So that becomes our expression, and this expression is similar to the one in the fourth quadrant. Meanwhile, for this, we first need to simplify it down. Therefore, we have the numerator is already okay, negative sine of theta, and we're dividing this by sine of 180 degrees plus theta. And we add this to our 3 sine of 360 minus theta. Now after that, we can also reduce this down using our reduction formula that we know, and we have the one up is already okay. We have sine of the angle theta, and we divide this by the reduced version of it. And from here, since this one is in the second quadrant, it's only term is positive, so sine is negative in the third quadrant, so the result would be negative sine of the angle theta, and we're adding this to 3, and sine also 360 in the fourth quadrant is negative, so we'll have this multiplied by, maybe you can put in the bracket here, and we input in negative sine of the angle theta. So from there we can open up the bracket. From the numerator we still maintain our negative sine of the angle theta. So let's get more space here and we divide this by. So when we multiply, positive and negative is negative. So we have sine of our theta minus 3 sine of theta. Now we can simplify this down by adding them together because they're like terms and still maintain the numerator the same as negative sine of the angle theta, and dividing this by negative 4 sine theta. So sine theta is common both in the numerator and denominator, so we'll cancel this sine by that, and the negative will go to positive. Therefore, our final result is simply 1 over 4, and that is the solution for question number 2. Let's take a look and see how many marks it carries for this question. I think the marks are not indicated, but I saw from the original paper it's around 5 marks. So this is how we solve up this question here. If you have watched up to this time, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting this channel. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and do so in the next minute. So please, as before I said, if you want to have some requests of any question to be solved, use the WhatsApp number on the screen here and then send your request. I will be available to answer your question, and see you in the next video. Peace out.